Hey guys, my name is Caitlin. Today we're going to be talking about my March wrap-up and my April TBR. So I'm just going to get into it. The first book I read in March was The Count of Monte Cristo. Oh my gosh, I loved this book so much. I think I started reading this in mid-January. This was a very long book, I think a little over 1,200 pages. But it was so great. The writing was so fast-paced. I feel like there were really no plot holes. This is a classic story about revenge. We follow Edmund as he's in prison, as he escapes prison, becomes the Count of Monte Cristo, and enacts his revenge on the people who wronged him. This was just so amazing. I feel like there are so many characters in here that you get attached to. Personally, I loved the Count of Monte Cristo and Abby Faria. I also really loved Villefort's storyline and what happens with him and Madame Danglars. It's just so interesting how connected everyone is in this book. I feel like everything in this book just connects so well. It all serves the ultimate purpose of the story, and I just loved it so much. If you're thinking of reading this, I really recommend it. I've only heard good things about this. I don't think I've seen a bad review. I really think anyone could read this, and everyone should, just because it is enjoyable and fun. The next book that I read in March was actually a play, and it was Shakespeare's Julius Caesar. I had to read this because of the Ides of March, and I never really learned too much about Julius Caesar in school. I knew of him and I knew of Brutus and the betrayal, but I didn't really know the full story. And I was looking into it. This play is pretty accurate in terms of the events that occurred. Some of the timelines are incorrect. I know Shakespeare condensed years of events into just a few days, but overall, most of the events that occurred in real life were pretty accurate to what Shakespeare put in his play. I did like this. I didn't love it. A lot of it reminded me of Othello. Cassius and Julius Caesar really reminded me of Iago. I feel like Cassius's thought process and his reasoning for wanting to betray Caesar wasn't really fleshed out enough. I just was hoping it was going to be a little more personal, have more depth, and I just did not feel that way. I feel like the conspirators such as Brutus, Cinna, Casca, they all just kind of followed Cassius blindly. They didn't really question Cassius. I mean, they did a little, but then they were like, okay, let's just go along with it. Let's just kill Caesar. I also wanted more from Caesar himself. I felt like he was such a minor character in this play, and I just really wanted more revenge, more feelings, more depth between him and Brutus, or Brutus and Cassius, or Cassius and Caesar. I just wanted more. With that said though, I did like this. I really enjoyed reading Shakespeare again. Would love to see a production of Julius Caesar. This is such an iconic story, an iconic play. I think it's definitely worth a read if you like Shakespeare or history. I just kind of wanted a little more depth from it. The third and the last book that I read in March was Taras Bulba by Nikolai Gogol. Nikolai Gogol is my all-time favorite author. I was nervous to start reading this because this is about Taras Bulba and his two sons, Andriy and Ostap. They are Cossacks, which is a sect of Ukrainian and maybe Russian people, but primarily Ukrainian, who are fighting for their true faith, and that is the Eastern Orthodox Church. I knew this was already going to encompass more religion, and if you see the front cover, we see some men riding horses with weapons, and I do not read anything really related to war, battles, action-packed things. That's not really something I look for in a book, and it's not something I'm familiar with either. So I was nervous going into this just because it has a lot of things that I'm not particularly interested in, and I was worried that I wouldn't be able to follow the story. But I think this was written so well, And even though I wasn't familiar with a lot of the religious or historical things in this book, it was really easy to follow. So this is about Taras Bulba and his two sons, Andrei and Ostap. Andrei really isn't committed to Cossack life. He honestly wants to just fall in love, be in love, and he essentially commits treason and runs away to be with the woman that he loves and join the Poles. Then we have Ostap, who is very committed to being a Cossack, and he dies for his faith, for the cause. And we kind of follow Taras's perspective as his two sons differ so wildly. And it's very interesting to see the dynamic between Taras and his two sons because Taras is very committed and dedicated to being a Cossack. Andrei and Ostap both face their fate in this book. I thought this was really well written. The battle scenes were very easy to follow, which I was very happy about because I don't read these kinds of books. I also saw some of Gogol in here. His imagery, his descriptions, his characterizations of people are all very similar to what I've read before by him, whether in Dead Souls or one of his short stories. But this was the most unlike Gogol story I've read, which was really cool. I feel like Gogol is such a great author. Writing different types of stories, I feel like, of course, there are elements of his writing that you can pick up in every single thing he's written, but I also think it's really cool how he can diversify what he writes about. And then I actually did DNF a book. I hardly ever do this, but it was just so bad. And that was 2 Parts Sugar, 1 Part Murder by Valerie Burns. Now, I picked this up after finishing The Count of Monte Cristo because I wanted something light and fluffy. I wanted something written in the 21st century. And that's definitely what this book is, but it was just so poorly written. At first, it wasn't too bad, and it wasn't great writing, but it was fine. It wasn't bad, but it quickly got horrible. I feel like Valerie Burns just kept inserting different adjectives to try to show instead of tell, but it was really all telling. There's one scene that is living in my brain, and it's these 2 male characters who are greeting each other, and they give each other a manly half hug and a knuckle punch. And I was just like, how is this writing? Like, I don't want to be mean, but oh my gosh, like it just was so bad. And I just feel like it was the protagonist like, oh, I woke up, I'm going to the bakery, I'm taking my dog. It's just like so much telling and no showing. Also, the protagonist, Maddie, was just so unlikable. I think she was supposed to be because she is very snobby, very privileged, has never had to do anything in her life, and now she's having responsibilities such as a house, a dog, a bakery. So I think her character is supposed to become more likable as we go on, as she learns how to be a real human. But I did not like her, and as I was reading, I just started disliking her more and more. So yeah, I had to DNF that book. Now on to my April TBR, the book that I have been reading forever, Metamorphoses by Ovid. Now, I actually started reading this book this morning. I read book 9 in here, so I only have 5 books left, so I'm making progress. It's going well. Yeah, I just wasn't really in the mood to read this. Nothing negative about it, really. It's actually so beautifully written. I just read the story of Hercules, which was so fun and very morbid. We have like an amazing description of envy, and Ovid kind of makes envy into a person, and it is so great. We have Medusa in here, Hades, Persephone, Philomela, we have Thisbe and Pyramus. We just have so many classic myths in here. It is so great. I'm excited to keep reading this. I'm really prioritizing this book in April, and hopefully I'll finish it soon. Once I finish Metamorphoses, I really want to read some Walt Whitman. Now, I decided to pick this up because last spring I read Devotions by Mary Oliver, and it was just such an enjoyable experience. I would wake up in the morning, open my windows, have the warm breeze come in, the sun would be rising, the birds would be chirping, and Mary Oliver really writes about the connection between nature and human. It is devotional poetry. It's also really spiritual, and I think Walt Whitman has similar themes of nature and humanity. So I don't plan on reading all of this, but I would like to read his poems in Leaves of Grass. I think there are 12 original poems. They are all in this Penguin Classics edition. Also, like, I don't know how I feel about the cover, but the colors are so gorgeous. I'm obsessed. So yeah, I would like to read those 12 poems and just see what this is about. I don't think I've ever read Walt Whitman, not even in school. But yeah, I think this will be great to read in the springtime. I just feel like poetry is meant for spring, so I'm really excited to start this. Next, a book I already started reading. I'm not that far into it yet, but it is The Kite Runner. I have only heard good things about this book. I'm not 100% sure what it's about. I think it's about a childhood friendship between two boys, and I think something traumatic happens and then they grow apart. I know this book is devastating. I don't know what that devastating thing is though. As I said, I'm not that far into it. I'm on chapter 3, but I kind of want to go in blind to this. As I said, I've only heard good things, and I kind of just want to experience this book as I read it. Now, I don't know if I'm going to get to these two books because I do have a bunch of books coming in the mail that I really want to read. I'll probably post that book haul next week, so subscribe, watch out for that. Although I'm kind of nervous. I ordered this one book and it's coming from the UK, so it might take like 1 or 2 weeks, but I am so excited for this book. I can't wait to tell you about it. Anyway, I don't know if I'm going to get to these two books, but I would really like to read them. The first one is The Village of Stepanchikovo by Dostoevsky. I'm just like loving the Penguin Classics right now. Like, look at these colors. I realized I haven't read Dostoevsky since December. And last year, I read a Dostoevsky every single month. There were probably only a few days last year where I was not spending time with this man, and I miss him. So this is a story about Sergei. He goes to stay with his uncle, and he meets this man, Opiskin, who just drives him crazy. This book takes place over just a couple of days, and I think it's just supposed to be funny, satirical, lighthearted. This does have some influence from Gogol, so I'm expecting good things. And it's a little under 200 pages, so it's actually not that long. So I hope to read this after I finish The Kite Runner, just because I miss reading Dostoevsky so much. And the only other book I have by him is The Adolescent, which is I think 600 or 700 pages, and I'm just not ready for that right now. As I just said, I'm not ready for a big book right now. Just look at what I'm about to bring out. It is Bleak House by Charles Dickens. I have never read Dickens besides A Christmas Carol, and Bleak House stood out to me because I think it's about the British legal system. Watch, I'm just making that up, and this is about something completely different, but that's why I decided to pick up this Dickens as my first. It is just over 1,000 pages, so I don't anticipate finishing this in April, but I would like to start it just because I've been wanting to read it. I don't know, I keep looking at it on my shelf and I want to start it, but I have other books that I'm committed to right now. I said I wasn't going to start any long book until I finished Metamorphoses, so once I finish that, it's kind of free reign, but until then, no Bleak House. What do you think? Have you read this or anything by Dickens before? I can't believe I haven't read him just because he is such a popular British author. But if you've watched any of my videos, that's because I'm very much in Russia and Ukraine with my reading. However, I have been diversifying things this year, which has actually been really nice. Anyway, that is my March wrap up and my April TBR. Please let me know if you've read any of these books and what you plan to read in April. I'd love to know. Thank you again so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.